The nation's narrow path to avoiding a recession and major job losses while bringing down inflation looks increasingly precarious this morning. The household saving rate has sunk to a 15-year low as Australians increasingly make sacrifices just to afford the essentials.
Australia's economy has expanded at the slowest rate since the 1990s recession. That's outside of the pandemic. But the Reserve Bank Governor, Michelle Bullock, won't rule out another interest rate hike to deal with stubborn or sticky inflation. Political reporter Evelyn Manfield is helping us crunch the latest data this morning. She joins us from Canberra. Evelyn, talk us through the numbers we got yesterday.
These national accounts figures from the March quarter that we got yesterday show that the economy barely grew in the first 3 months of the year, expanding just 0.1% during that March quarter. And then the year to March, it expanded 1.1%. So economists say that is the weakest annual growth since that recession, outside of the pandemic, of course, but since the recession in 1991, that was dubbed the recession Australia had to have. Now, on a per capita basis, these figures show that the economy actually contracted for the 5th consecutive quarter. So it's really population growth that's keeping Australia out of a recession. Now, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, was answering questions about this weak economy yesterday. He put it down to a number of factors, including higher interest rates, persistent inflation, but also global economic uncertainty.
The Reserve Bank Governor was at Senate estimates yesterday, so what was the vibe from her?
She was facing questions from senators about interest rates and inflation, saying that she's hoping to keep Australia on this narrow path that we so often hear about. She talked about the forecast for inflation is still set to get within that target band of between 2 and 3% by the end of 2025, and then get to the midpoint of that band by 2026. But she says there's a lot of uncertainty around this. Here's her response to questions about interest rates.
If it turns out, for example, that inflation starts to go up again, or it's much stickier than we think, we're not getting it down, then we won't hesitate to move and raise interest rates again. In contrast, if it turns out that the economy is much weaker than expected and that puts more downward pressure on inflation, then we'll be looking to ease.
So a couple of factors there as she hopes to keep Australia on this narrow path. She did also get some questions from senators about if she does understand and if the bank does understand the pressure that interest rates put on Australians. She says that she does receive a lot of letters about this and she reads those, notes that they're hard to read, but she's trying to do the best thing for the broader economy rather than some of those specific groups that are doing it particularly tough.
Some big decisions ahead. Evelyn, thank you. Hey, Bridget's here with the headlines. G'day,
Sure
Bridge.
am. Good morning, guys. Good to see you. Well, let's get into some news. The UN Secretary-General has called for a global ban on fossil fuel advertising, calling out the industry and media for what he says is enabling a highway to climate hell. In the speech to mark World Environment Day, Antonio Guterres warned time was running out to keep global temperatures on target.
We need an exit ramp off the highway to climate hell. The battle for 1.5 degrees will be won or lost in the 2020s under the watch of leaders today.
Armaguard is facing a fresh investigation from the competition watchdog over its monopoly grip on cash distribution. The ACCC will use its powers to consider the conduct of Armaguard in recent months and ensure it's meeting the conditions of its merger with its main rival last September. Armaguard controls 90% of the market of distributing banknotes around the country, but has repeatedly warned that the declining use of cash has made its business model unsustainable. New South Wales will today become the last Australian state or territory to issue a formal apology to those who were convicted under historic laws that made homosexuality a crime. Premier Chris Minns will deliver the apology in the lower house, with Labor frontbencher Penny Sharp doing the same in the upper house. This week marks 40 years since New South Wales decriminalised homosexuality. A survey of ABC News staff has found 13% of respondents experienced sexual harassment at work, and more than a quarter have been bullied over the past 2 years. Of the 745 employees who took part in the survey, 97 reported having experienced sexual harassment. The ABC's Managing Director, David Anderson, has described the results as unacceptable, adding there's more work to be done across the entire organisation. British actress Jeanette Charles, who played Queen Elizabeth in dozens of films across more than 40 years, has died aged 96. Her uncanny resemblance to the former monarch initially meant she couldn't find work as an actor before a self-portrait in the 70s captured national attention. She went on to star as the Queen in 29 films, including The Naked Gun, National Lampoon and Austin Powers franchises as well.
Thanks, Bridge. Let's take a look at the global markets. The ASX futures heading up. The Dow has ended in a stronger position and the Australian dollar is sitting at 66.5 US cents.
And Australia's oldest woman turns 110 today. Lorna Henstridge lives at a nursing home in Bordertown and is celebrating the occasion with her family. Ms Henstridge is the oldest woman and the second oldest person in Australia, behind a New South Wales man who's about 4 months older than her. She says it's important to stay positive, don't drink too much alcohol, and above all, stay active.
I just keep on keeping on. I've always liked exercise, fresh air, interest in people, and being active all the time.